and reviewing the total picture, require warning signs relating to the one prescribing this drug?
Yes, the Food and Drug Administration put extra labels after our studies came out saying that there were studies showing that it could affect brain function both in humans and in animals. They made it part of they required a registry where it was the first time in history where there's been a registry like this where both doctors and patients and the pharmacists who prescribed the medication had to sign up for this registry. They had to. The other thing is that this drug can cause terrible birth defects in about half of women who take it while they're on the medication. In some cases, the medication made the women depressed, and because they were depressed, even though they knew it could cause birth defects, they didn't use birth control, and then they got pregnant, and then they had a baby with birth defects, which is really a heartbreaking story. And now it's required that women have to be in this registry. They have to demonstrate that they're actually on birth control. It used to be the case that they could say that they were using abstinence as a method of birth control. That's no longer allowed. You have to prove that you're actually on 2 forms of birth control. And it's been taken off the market by the primary drug manufacturer that came up with the drug in the first place. And but it's still available as a generic form from a couple of other companies. You know, the other tragedy of this whole story is that the company that first manufactured it had a patent on a higher dose, and it probably was effective at a lower dose, but they were telling doctors to use the higher dose because that's what they had the patent for. So a lot of these tragedies, I think, could have been averted if they were using the lower dose, but of course they didn't have a patent on it, so they weren't motivated to get doctors to use the lower dose.
So here we are now, and a number of years later, and you've written this book before you take that pill. And in the book, you're trying to give the other side. That is, you have the pharmaceutical industry side, and you have your side. Now, you don't have a lot of money to promote your side. You don't have billions of dollars, and you don't hire PR people to promote your book at the same level that the pharmaceutical companies hire PR people to promote their drugs. How do you think the system could change whereby there would be more balance? This is a little different than deciding on which bank you want to put your money in when they're all FDIC covered, or a little different than deciding on which restaurant you're going to go to buy your food, or which department store you're going to go to buy your clothes. In those cases, if you choose one versus the other, there might be a difference in how it looks or how well the material, the particular dress is sewn to see if it's, you know, a nice dress. But in your case, what you're advocating for, the difference could be somebody dying or having a major health problem. So it's really important that as an individual, people have the choice to make the decision, but an informed decision, seems to me. So how can we solve this problem? Can you give me the solution? I mean, since the whole country's driven a lot by monetization, how can we counter that?
We're not going to be able to take away the marketing budgets from pharmaceutical companies. So the only solution is going to be to try and counter that somehow. And it is very difficult to go up against that big monster marketing machine. I wasn't even able to get my own university to issue a press release when my book came out, Before You Take That Pill, because I think they somehow thought that they didn't want to upset the pharmaceutical industry. Maybe they're worried about not getting more research grants or something like that. I'm not really sure. But the word does trickle out in that people start to become suspicious about the information that they're getting. Even the health reporting in in major magazines and newspapers what I call cheerleading or shilling, where a press release will come out from a drug company about maybe a large study that showed that there's a beneficial effect on some particular drug preventing the disease, and then the health journalists will come out and cover the story unquestioningly, and they'll just repeat what the press release is. And what I do is I'll go and read the actual article, and I'll find something in the fine print of the article that indicates that the benefit is not as great as the press release said that it was. For instance, there was a large trial of statin medications in Scotland that trumpeted a slight reduction in death. And I went and read the fine print of the paper and found that there's also an increase in prostate cancer, which is something that I think people would want to know about. So I write on my blog, it's called beforeyouttakethatpill.com, and when I read something in the literature that I want to show an alternative viewpoint of, there's other health journalists out there who are writing in blogs and in other, and they're sort of like keeping the mainstream journalists honest with some of their reporting of the cheerleading type stories that go on in the media. The other thing is that people have become more suspicious about the information they get, so they go out and they look on the internet, and then a lot of medical doctors will say you shouldn't read anything on the internet because you can't trust the veracity of the information. That's true. You have to take things with a grain of salt, but personally, I found one of the most interesting things to do is to go onto a website like medication.com or askthepatient.com and read the forums where people are talking about a particular medication and see what they're complaining most about. And that's how I discovered that the birth control pill called Yasmin was having a huge number of women who were complaining about depression and about changes in their mood that was related to the birth control pill. And a lot of doctors are saying, oh, this is just your period, or this is just part of being a woman, or something like that. When in fact, if you look at the overall picture, you could see a clear pattern that there are large numbers of women who are having severe changes in their mood and personalities. And it is only logical that if you go look at this drug, which totally changes your natural monthly variation in the sex hormones like estrogen and progesterone, that it could have an effect on your mood, because those hormones go up into your brain, they bind to receptors in the brain, and they can affect your mood.